Vice President Kamala Harris has been making some serious waves with recent media appearances, and it's got people talking. From a sit-down with Fox News anchor Brett Baier, her first on the network, to a possible spot on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, it seems like she's trying to reach as many voters as possible, no matter the platform. But what really caught some by surprise was her exclusive interview with The Shade Room. Yeah, Kamala sat down with The Shade Room. I could have said shat down, but sat down with The Shade Room to discuss her opportunity agenda, specifically for Black men. And of course, Beyonce. Here's what she had to say about Beyonce.
Yes.
Freedom, freedom, I can't lose. I'm not going to mess up the words, and I don't want to get sued by Beyonce.
And there are a couple of versions that she has, right?
I know. Did you call up the queen? Like, how did that work?
She absolutely gave me permission to use the song. I love her. And
have you met her?
I have met her, but not since I've been running just now. Okay. But I have met her, and she's just very special.
Now, Dex, you mentioned Charlemagne as well. Some are applauding her efforts to connect with Black voters, especially young men. Others, well, they feel like, it's a bit forced. Do you think it's a smart strategy for her to go on platforms like Shade Room and Charlemagne the God's podcast and all these other popular culture things like the Joe Rogan Experience, or is she kind of just out of her depth and looking kind of desperate? What do you think, Dex?
I think it's insane to say a person looks desperate while doing an interview while running for president. Like, she could literally come sit with us and that would not be desperate. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You're trying to be the president for everybody, not just one solid group of people. Like, you want to reach as many people as possible. I think that is absolutely crazy to say that she's desperate. And I've been seeing a lot of that in the media too. Like, they're like, oh, she looks so desperate because she's doing this and the third. Like, would you prefer her to sit at home and like not interview at all? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't want you to ever go in the Shade Room again, though. Like, that was a when I watched that interview, I was very annoyed. I think that just wasn't good for me.
Well, I was definitely pulling it up for you to remember what the tweet was that you posted. Looks like here it says, Kamala Harris sitting down with The Shade Room was a choice. I'm ready for this election to end.
I am. Because when I saw the interview, one of the very first things I'm glad you played the clip too. One of the very first things the guy asked her about, his name is Justin. He asked her about Beyonce. I was like, why are we asking about Beyonce? Then she was like, oh, well, I met her like years ago or whatever. Then he goes, what was she like? Did you have a moment with Beyonce? Like, what are we doing here? And like, this is the type of stuff that you get when you do an interview with The Shade Room. Okay. And then she's like, well, I don't really know Beyonce like that, but her mom's a big supporter of mine. And then he starts singing the Freedom song. It's like, what are we doing? Don't ever do that again.
Okay, so you don't mind her going on other platforms. It's just particularly The Shade Room. That conversation was a little weird.
The Shade Room thing didn't do her any favors, because if you look at the comments on that Shade Room post, like, those people are like, they're imbeciles. Like, people who follow The Shade Room are like stupid. Like, they're not. They're probably not even registered to vote. I'm serious. Like, they're all like she's pandering to people.
We don't have
you think about it. The Shade
Room,
don't
have any hard data to support that.
We do. The Shade Room audience, they're supporters of Krishan Rock and baddies. Like, that's what they do. That's what they watch. That's what they like. I'm not saying that these people don't vote.
I mean, they don't
vote.
Yeah.
Staggering elitism here.
I'm not saying these people don't vote. I'm just saying they vote should not count.
Well, first of all, we aren't prime time because we aren't Roland Martin.
We're not Roland Martin.
And someone told us in our comments. They said, y'all good, but you are not big time. You're not Roland Martin. Like Roland Martin. I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
Roland Martin was offended by the Shade Room interview because they said it was an exclusive. And he goes, well, I got to talk to her right after this. And he's like, are you jealous of the Shade Room? Like, what's going on here? Like,
I mean,
Mr. Primetime.
They had their version of an exclusive interview. They talk about Beyonce and Roland Martin did. So it is what it is. Speaking of going out there and stumping, I'll get your opinion on this, Ty. President Barack Obama, known for his powerful speeches, took to Pittsburgh. To make no offense to Pittsburgh people, but to make a bold appeal to Black voters. Speaking at a campaign event for Vice President Kamala Harris, Obama didn't hold back. He acknowledged the growing hesitancy among Black men to support Harris and questioned whether gender bias is playing a role.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly. On the other side, you have someone who has consistently shown disregard, not just for the communities, but for you as a person. And you're thinking about sitting out? I'm not. But, you know, Cousin Pookie might be. And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly now, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. I didn't mean to get so serious. But when I hear about this stuff, I start feeling like we don't have enough of a sense of what's at stake here. These aren't ordinary times, and these are not ordinary elections. You're lucky Michelle's not here. She really talking serious about this stuff.
That whole speech, as great as it was, immediately sparked a debate. While some praised him for addressing what they see as a critical issue, others were less enthusiastic. Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner and other critics argued that it was unfair to single out Black men, saying, quote, Black men and Black women do not vote much differently. It's wrong to single out Black men when Black men are the most loyal male voting bloc for Democrats. It's patronizing and wrong. Kamala Harris spoke to a lot of this during the aforementioned Shade Room interview, and this is what she had to say.
Obama, you know him?
I do know him. I do.
He recently, in Pittsburgh.
President,
let's get it right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Obama.
President. Do you think that what President Obama said was the right thing to say?
Let me tell you, I am very proud to have the support of President Obama, and that he is out traveling to talk with voters about what is at stake in this election. I'm very proud to have his support. What is also important is, one, to understand, like as I said, I intend to earn the vote of everyone, including Black men. Two, pay attention to everything that President Obama talked about, because he also talked about at length the danger of Donald Trump. So I think it's really important to focus on the stakes of this election, and there are two choices. And I ask everyone to look at the background, look at the work, look at the words, to have a sense of how you then choose to use the power of your vote on Election Day. But there is a very big difference between Donald Trump and how I will be president of the United States.
All right. Do you think Obama's comments were helpful, hurtful, unnecessary? What do you think about the former president's comments to Black men about the necessity to vote for Kamala Harris in this upcoming election?
I think it's interesting that we're pretending as if he pulled these comments out of his ass. Like we're on Twitter, we're on all these platforms saying a whole lot of ridiculous stuff. It's not all of us. It's not even the majority of us, but there is some basis for what he's saying and what is the rhetoric that's been put out there. I mean, it's happened. Now, was it necessary for him to say and call out? I mean, maybe not, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not like he pulled the comments out of his ass. This stuff is happening. And it looks ridiculous. And there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know if they're being paid or what, because like some of this stuff they're saying is crazy. But I don't know that the majority of us are you know, standing behind Trump or not necessarily voting for Kamala Harris. But the comments aren't from nowhere, because there is enough of us to where it becomes recognizable that there's an issue that we have with Kamala Harris.
So I've been listening to the Clarence Thomas season of Slate Slow Burn, and they're talking a lot about like Black conservatives and the numbers around that, and how many people like identify as a Black conservative. And we even had one on our show like this season for the first time ever, right? We've been doing the show for 10 years, and we finally had our first like true Black conservative on the show. And you know, it was a great show. It was very fun to watch, fun banter. And people like that are all over Twitter. And the study that I was listening to said that 20 to 30% of Black men would check off on a list saying that I identify as a conservative. Now, that doesn't mean 20 to 30% of people are necessarily voting for Trump, because what they were saying is white people's definition of conservative is different from a Black person's definition of conservative, like, because of course, right? But it's still a good chunk of people who would say, I'm a conservative person and I'm not going to vote for liberalism in either a woman candidate or a Black woman candidate or someone who represents progressive ideals. So there is this contingency, and it's like Todd said, there's not pulling it out of his ass. The stats do back it up. But Dex, how do you feel about Barack Obama centering this conversation specifically to Black men? Because is it a sense of desperation, like, look, we can't afford to lose any votes? Or is it a sense of you guys aren't doing enough? What do you think?
First of all, I think that I like that you said former President Barack Obama. He's not the president. So if I was the guy doing the Shade Room interview, when she corrected me and said president, like I would have corrected her, because like he's not the president. Okay, you're running for president. That's one thing that would have pissed me off. The second thing, when I first saw that Obama thing, I'm just like, why are you talking to me? Like I'm literally in a voting situation now. Like I'm at a rally or whatever with you. Why are you talking to me? But then when I saw Nina's thing, I thought about it, and it's one of those situations where if it don't apply, like you let it fly. Like obviously Barack Obama is a Black man. He needs to talk to Black men. And I also think Hillary Clinton needs to talk to white women. I think Bill Clinton needs to talk to white men. Like these are people who you're voting for who look just like you. These are your public figures, so they should be talking to you. I don't understand like why it's a problem for a Black man to address Black men on a Black man issue. And sure, I do think the conservative conversation comes up or whatever, but that's also not the Black men that I think he's talking to. You're not talking to someone who has decided that they're going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, he said you're sitting up. Yeah.
Who are not voting at all. Like you're just not going to do it at all, because really, because in my opinion, because it's a woman. Like that's why you won't do it, because there's no other reason why you wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris was a white man or a Black man doing and saying the same things that she's doing, you would vote for them. Like you wouldn't have an issue with that. Truthfully, if Kamala Harris was a Black man, she'd be Barack Obama, and you voted for him. So, like, what are we doing here?
Well said.